If you're an entrepreneur in your 20s, my goal is to make this the most valuable talk you have ever listened to. And I know that's a bold statement to kick this off, but what I want to do here is give you a complete map of the entrepreneurial journey that you're going to travel in your 20s as you hopefully build a business that changes the course of your life. I believe that these principles could easily make the difference between total success and complete failure. And what I want to say as we kick this off is that there will be none of the corny motivational bullshit that you normally hear in videos like these. And you've heard all of this, like setting big goals and don't fear failure and cut out all your friends and go monk mode so you can work 12 hours a day and escape the matrix or whatever the fuck people say in videos like these. There will be none of that shit here. This will be battle-tested business and life strategy based on my own 15 years in entrepreneurship, privately coaching 6, 7, and 8-figure entrepreneurs, and personally generating 8 figures in revenue throughout my 20s. So I believe these are principles you will not hear anywhere else. And my advice for this is to strap in, focus up. I hope you bookmark this talk and come back to it again and again throughout this decade, because I believe this could be the most important decade of your life. And along those lines, the way I want to frame this talk as we kick it off is to treat your 20s like a professional athlete treats their prime. Obviously, a professional athlete, as they play their sport, has this window of opportunity to make as much money as they can before their body basically gives out on them. And in business, that's of course not the same thing, because we can play this game until we're 70, even 80 in some cases. However, the harsh truth that almost nobody wants to admit is that starting out in business, make no mistake, is a young person's game. As the roots of your life set as you get older, you maybe get a family, you probably have a mortgage, you might even have a job, hopefully not, but maybe. As those roots set, it is much harder to uproot them later, because if you quit your job when you're 40 to start a business, or even 50, you put your entire family at risk. So do not make the mistake of assuming that you have the rest of your life to do this. In many cases, if it doesn't happen now, it's never going to happen. So there's a sense of urgency here. And I want you to pay full attention to the principles in this talk, because again, I believe this could be the decade that changes the course of your life and certainly will dictate where your life ends up. So as you travel through this path, there's 3 stages that every entrepreneur is going to go through. The first stage is what I call survival. You're basically just trying to get something off the ground and make something work. Provide for your survival needs so that you don't have to get sucked into the, the quicksand of a 9-to-5 job that traps almost everyone that falls into it. Stage 2, once you're beyond survival, is scale. You're trying to grow and expand now that you've figured out something that works. And hopefully, if you play that right, you'll get to stage 3, which I call sovereignty. So sovereignty is loosely translated to self-rule. This is the domain of kings in medieval times who had full control over their life, full sovereignty. In other words, you have reached a degree of mastery. You're hopefully on your way, or maybe you already have beaten the money game forever, and you're moving on to bigger and bigger goals. So we have principles for each one of these 3 stages in this talk. And as we move through the principles, please know these principles apply at every stage. So if you're early on in your journey, maybe you're just starting out, pay close attention to the principles in stage 3, because those will be like an accelerator button if you apply them early. And if you're later on in the game, maybe you're making 6 figures a month already, or even over $1 million a month, like a client of mine. If you're at that stage, then the principles from early on in the game still apply. So lock in and let's get started. As I said, stage 1 is called survival. And this is the stage where you might not know exactly what you want to do. You might have some idea, but what you do know is what you don't want to do, which is get sucked down that 9-to-5 path, as we said, like quicksand, which almost nobody escapes from. The energy of this stage is like an animal biting its way out of a trap. And I don't mean that to sound dramatic, but it is dramatic, okay? You're fighting against the momentum of society here. And there's so much inertia as you're starting to push this boulder up the hill that most entrepreneurs just underestimate the amount of violence required to get that boulder to the top of the hill so that it starts moving on its own. And so the fear and urgency that you feel at this stage is a good thing. It's a good thing. Use it. That's energy that will propel you up that mountain. And the goal here, as we move through these principles, is to essentially just make something work that's hopefully uniquely suited for you. So the first principle that I'm going to share with you here goes like this. The first step isn't hard work, it's clarity. Your ability to hit your targets at this stage and at every stage depends on your ability to see them clearly. And so we want to get clear on a few really specific targets. The first one being your ideal lifestyle. Sit down and map out exactly what you want your ideal lifestyle to look like. Where do you want to live? What kind of car do you want to drive? What are your monthly food expenses even? What kind of gym do you go to? How much does that gym cost? Where are you traveling to? Are you traveling first class or economy? All of these things will dictate what your ideal lifestyle costs. And so sit down without thinking about whether or not this is possible. Just take the limiters off and dream up the perfect life for yourself. Then calculate meticulously exactly how much that will cost, and that will give you your first target that we need, which is your lifestyle number, preferably a monthly lifestyle number. So let's use as a round number, 20K a month. That's a pretty big lifestyle, I know, so you can get by on way less than that. Don't feel like you need to make 20K a month, but let's just use it as an example. From that 20K a month number, what we then need to hit is a revenue number. So how much does our business need to generate to support that type of lifestyle? What a lot of entrepreneurs do, they fuck this up terribly because they think, and I'm speaking to myself here as well, they think that to support a 20K a month lifestyle, your business needs to make 20K a month. That's not true. That's not how it works. You have growth that you're reinvesting back into the business. You're paying your team, hopefully. You're paying for advertising. You are hopefully putting money away as well. There's taxes. So these are all things that early stage entrepreneurs just don't think about. At a minimum, what you want is your revenue number to be 3 times your ideal lifestyle number. And I would even prefer 5x if you can. Or more than that, frankly, but minimum 3. So let's say in this example, we have a 20K a month ideal lifestyle. Let's multiply that by 3. That means our business, again, at minimum, needs to be making 60K a month to support that lifestyle. Now we have a few clear targets that we want to reach. What we also want to do, which almost no entrepreneur does at this stage, is to set a beat the game number. How much money do you need to have invested in passive assets that are paying for your life so that you don't have to work to make money anymore? I know that sounds out of reach, okay? But as we're going to explore later on in this talk, it's not nearly as hard as it sounds. So your beat the game number, all you do for this is you take your annual lifestyle expense. So multiply your ideal lifestyle by 12. In this case, 20 by 12 is 240. So let's call it 250 for a round number. We take that annual lifestyle 250 and multiply it by 20. That's your beat the game number. So 250 by 20 is 5 million that we need invested in passive assets. That way, we know that those passive assets very conservatively are going to pay off about 5% per year. You can do much better than that as well. But again, conservatively, 5% per year pays you $250,000 that supports your entire life before you do a minute of work. That's when you've beat the game. Okay. So we have ideal lifestyle. We have your lifestyle number, like how much does it cost? We have your monthly revenue number, and we have your beat the game number. Get really clear on these as a starting point. These will change over time. But again, we just want a target to aim at to start. That's the stage we're at. So set these numbers, get really clear on them, and then put them everywhere. Post these numbers on the wall behind your computer. Write them down every day. Look at them before you go to bed. Make them your screensaver on the back of your phone if you have to. You should know these numbers inside and out and be absolutely obsessed with them. When I was first moving into my dorm room in first year university, I had been writing down my own number, which was to generate $30,000 by September 2010. I was moving into my dorm room in September 2009. So when I actually signed the contract, I signed it September 2010, and they sent the contract back to me and were like, what are you doing? Like that's the wrong year. Have you forgotten what year it was? I'd programmed my mind so deeply with that number of $30,000 by September 2010 that I literally wrote the wrong year on the date on the contract. So that's how obsessed that you want to be. Okay. Put these numbers everywhere. Look at them all the time. Next, once you have clarity, the second principle, is to work with what you've got. Okay. Now, there are so many opportunities out there. and so many of them can work for you. But the wrong frame to follow is, what do I want to do, or what shiny opportunity has influencer XYZ convinced me that I should want to do? That's the wrong way of going about it. The right way of going about it is, what do I actually have to work with? And so when I was first starting out, again, 2009, wasn't really sure what business I wanted to start. I wanted to get into fitness coaching. And so I wanted to create like muscle building content online, sell at the time, like lots of ebooks were being sold, run a coaching program. However, I had no qualifications. I didn't have a degree. I wasn't running a gym, training people. I really had no experience in that field other than my own passion for fitness. And so that would have failed. Make no mistake, that would have failed. I was going up against people with much better qualifications and experience in the marketing game. So what I did is I looked at, okay, what do I actually have going for me? Well, I have a career in basketball. I got injured in training camp in university, but I got a scholarship. I was playing semi-pro. I was on my way to playing professionally overseas. And so I had this basketball skill, knowledge, and understanding of the customer because I'd actually lived that experience. Now I've got a workable business model. I have something that I actually have credentials in. So again, not what do I want to do or what's the shiniest idea that's pulling me right now, but what do I actually have to work with? What has the highest chance of success for me? So a client of mine, when he was graduating college, he knew he didn't want to get a job, and he was thinking, okay, what do I have going for me right now? Well, like a lot of college graduates, he kind of had nothing going for him. He didn't have credentials in anything. He didn't have startup capital. He didn't have an audience. What he did have, and this goes for so many early stage entrepreneurs, is he had time and he had energy. So what he did is he learned what's called growth operating. He understood like marketing funnels, copywriting. He learned all of these skills, which are not that hard to learn, like all of the information's out there. And then he started doing cold outreach to online coaches who had audiences. He partnered with those online coaches. Suddenly, after I think a year or two, he was making 6 figures a month running their back-end marketing systems. So all he had to do was create his own qualifications by learning those skills because he had the time and energy to do it. After he was successful growth operating, he then started teaching other people to do growth operating and built a coaching business that as of a couple months ago was doing $150K a month. So, and I'll talk later about this coaching client because there's more to say on this, but I'll leave it there. If he had started his coaching business and his personal brand at the beginning, nobody would have given a fuck what he had to say, right? Like, why would they care? He hasn't done anything. However, he learned the skill because he had time and energy to do it. He did cold outreach. He partnered with coaches. He built a 6-figure a month business, growth operating. Now he has some credibility. So that's the path that so many young entrepreneurs are successful with, but they don't skip ahead to what do I want to do, which is like start a personal brand or build a software, which is a whole clusterfuck as well. Like, if you're doing that stuff early on, you're setting yourself up to fail. So work with what you've got up front. And the default path that I recommend to most entrepreneurs, if you're not sure of what to start with, learn a skill and then offer it as a service. That's the most surefire way to get ahead. The other half of this, which will bring us into principle number 3, is to play to your strengths, okay? This is the biggest difference as far as I'm concerned between those who make it and those who don't, because there's, again, overwhelming options out there that you could do and anything can work. The question is, what will work best for you? I had a couple students of mine who attend my retreats who got on a call recently and were telling me that they've been vibe coding an app. And neither of them are programmers. And so they inevitably found themselves staying up late every night, spending 4 hours trying to figure out how to code apps. And both of them were like banging their head against a wall. They're like, oh my God, I can't figure this out. I'm like, well, what are you doing? Like, neither of you are programmers. When you look at code, it looks like Egyptian hieroglyphics, like you're just playing against your natural strengths. Both of them, however, are creatives and coaches. And so they have this easy path and credentials in that field, by the way. So they have this easy path forwards. And the point is, they're naturally creative. They're naturally good coaches, but they're playing against their strengths to build something that wasn't built for them. So the rule is build a business that's built for you. And you do this by analyzing what is your natural skill set. Are you more creative or are you more on the analytical technical side? Are you built to be like the charismatic front-end leader on camera and as the face of a company? Or are you more like the genius behind the scenes, the back-end operations guy? Do you tend to do your best work solo, or do you tend to do your best work in teams of people? These are all considerations that you need to make and understand. There are so many opportunities out there. You don't have to play against your strengths. So I've created a tool. This is one of my favorite things as a free tool to give to young entrepreneurs. I call it Founder DNA. And you can get this in the link in the description. It's an AI tool that will walk you through a series of questions that will analyze your unique strengths and weaknesses and give you targeted advice on, one, what type of business to build, where to focus your time, what your unique strengths might be that maybe you're not even familiar with yet, and also what your growth edges are. What are your blind spots and areas of opportunity for growth as well? And you can talk back and forth with this AI tool and get really specific advice for your unique business wiring. So check that out in the description if you'd like to. Again, that's a really powerful tool. So that's principle number 3, play to your strengths. Number 4 is what I call full immersion. Okay. Most entrepreneurs at the early stages are dead before they start because they radically underestimate the level of obsession that's required to make it. We were talking about this at our summer retreat recently, and the host of our retreat, a longtime coaching client of mine, has built a business that's done over 40 million and I think 43 million at the time of recording this in sales. And I turned to him during this talk, and in front of the whole group, I said, like, how obsessed were you? Describe what you were actually doing as you were starting out your business. And he laughed and he goes, it's all I thought about all day long, every single day. It's all I thought about all day long, every single day. When I was first starting out, I slept on a mattress on the floor in the basement of a student house for a year with my desk right beside the mattress so I could literally roll out of bed, roll into my chair, and get to work and work all day long. In between work, I was reading books on marketing. I was consuming like every single course. I think I bought $5,000 worth of courses, which drove my parents crazy because they were lending me money to start this business, but I was spending it on courses and I paid it all back, thankfully. But I was going through everything. I bought everything. I listened to, if I was driving in my car or going for walks, I was listening to interviews. At one point, I actually ripped the VSL. I looked at the source code of web pages. I downloaded the VSL from Popular Funnels, transferred it to MP3, downloaded it, and then I'd listen to those VSLs on repeat when I was going for walks and even falling asleep at night to learn copywriting. I did this all day long, okay? That's the level of obsession that you need to have. And so there's a period of full immersion that pretty much every successful entrepreneur that I've ever seen goes through in the early stages. And the harsh truth is that if you're not genuinely obsessed with making this work, with building your business, you probably shouldn't bother. Okay. You probably shouldn't bother. And on the flip side to that, not so harsh, is that if you are obsessed, if you feel that fire burning right now, you probably have what it takes. I'm not saying there's no promises that you're going to make this work, but you probably do have what it takes because that's the obsession that's required. So at the same time, what you want to do is pair, of course, that obsession with learning with doing and actually, like, to use a corny, overused term, take action as you're building. But before we get into that, what I want to suggest to you is that, and this is principle number 5, you learn from fewer but better people. There's this double-edged blade right now with the amount of information available online. You can binge pretty much infinite marketing material, but there's a ton of people who don't know what the fuck they're talking about online. And at best, their information is very, very shallow. So many people today, because of the opportunity to do so, are building their first business by teaching other people how to build a business. This is fucking ridiculous, okay? And it's created this shiny object syndrome that's practically in the air we breathe. We can binge, again, like I said, infinitely, this shallow content from inexperienced people that will not help us. So instead of binging on YouTube and Instagram or wherever you get your content, my strong suggestion is that you read the classics first, okay? Read the classics. So learn the fundamentals of direct response and digital marketing from the best in the game. The first person to go to, this is where I went first, is Dan Kennedy. Read all of Dan Kennedy's books, the No BS series, in full, okay? Binge those before you follow XYZ influencer of the day. And then I would also suggest reading all of Hormozi's books. So I know he's more modern, I suppose, but still the fundamentals are excellent in those books. Time of filming this, he's got 3 books. By the time you watch this, he might have more. Also read Russell Brunson's books. For fundamentals of modern digital marketing, those are excellent. So Dan Kennedy, Hormozi, and Russell Brunson. Read all of those. Then you'll actually have the fundamentals down. You'll have an eye for quality. You'll be able to see like who knows what the fuck they're talking about, who should I actually follow, and who's just making stuff up or regurgitating what people before them had said. So I have a book list that I've put together, not only with my recommended business books, but also books for philosophy, for internal development, for training your mind, all kinds of different stuff. And if you want that book list, just comment book list down below and I'll have my assistant direct message you with that list, and no charge, of course. So learn from fewer but better people. And as you're doing that, as I said before, you want to pair that learning with doing. And that brings us to the final principle in this section, which is action creates clarity. So the default state of most young entrepreneurs at this stage, the survival stage, is constant overwhelm. The sheer amount of information that you have available at your fingertips right now is absolutely unmatched in all of human history. There's so many different paths you could go down and so many influencers that are telling you that's the only path that works. And of course, you're going to feel overwhelmed by that. So honestly, if you're not feeling overwhelmed, you're probably not pushing hard enough. There's nothing wrong with you at this stage. Please know that. But also please know that the antidote to that overwhelm and confusion that you're feeling right now is not sitting back and consuming more content and thinking about it and trying to hedge against looking a little bit foolish or sucking at first or fucking something up and making a mistake. It's to actually do it and find out. You will learn more in the first piece of content that you make than you will watching 100 videos on creating content. Same thing goes for running ads. If you're running your first ad campaign, you will learn more actually clicking around in the ad account and actually testing ad creative than you will in taking an entire course on how to run ads. Same thing goes for building funnels or getting on sales calls or any other action in your business. So you have to actually put your boots on the ground and do it. Pair the obsession with learning your craft with just relentless, sickening amounts of action. That's kind of the master formula here. I know a lot of people say that, but it's true for a reason, okay? It's the constant forward movement that's going to get you there. And you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be directionally correct. Like the same way that a plane is off course for 90% of its travel time, but it course corrects its way to the destination. That's what the path of business looks like. So take your shot. Whatever direction feels right to you, start walking in that direction and find out. I kind of envision this like you're walking through a dark forest and you can't see that far up ahead, maybe 5, maybe 10 feet in front of you, but you can't know what's looming ahead until you actually walk forward. So walk forward, okay? Now, paralyzing so many entrepreneurs at this stage is this fear that, people are going to see them and, it's not going to be that favorable. You're probably going to suck at first. But that's not optional. That's not optional. I watched my old videos recently. We had a Vimeo account that was about to get deleted. And I went through this old Vimeo account for the first time in like 10 years. And there's videos from 2010, 2011, 2012, my first sales videos, my first launch videos, funnel videos. And I could not believe how cringy these things were. And yet they worked. They actually worked. They built a 7-figure business. So you can suck and still make it work. You are going to suck at the start. That's not optional. So please understand that. It's the scrappy, unrelenting action that's going to get you there. And if you do that continuously over a long enough time period, you will then enter into stage 2, which is the scale stage. At this stage, you found something that works. You're making probably 10 to 50K a month, let's say in general. And you're also probably absolutely scrambling to make that 10 to 50K a month. Your revenue might be going up and down like a bit of a roller coaster. You probably don't have repeatable systems yet in place. And your business might look like a bit of a complicated mess. All right. You're sort of drowning in it. Now, the step at this stage is not to do more. It's actually to do fewer things better with more focus. So principle number 1 here is to distill your business to its essentials. I was at a mastermind meeting years and years ago. I think this was like 2011 or early 2012, something like that. And I'm up at the front of the room with a group of talented, like successful entrepreneurs. I was making a little bit of money. I think I was around 20K a month or so at this point. And I laid out my business plan, my master plan for this funnel that incorporated all of these different things. Like we were doing product launches and we were doing new offers every few months. And we were doing, what the hell were we doing? VSLs and long form sales letters. And we had this multi-step automated welcome sequence and all this crap. And so I'm sharing this with the group. And there's this old entrepreneur who was in his 40s at the time in the fat loss industry, who was literally reading a book during my presentation. And I was kind of looking at him out of the corner of my eye thinking like, oh, this is a little bit weird. And finally, I get to near the end of this complicated multi-step funnel that I put together and explained. And he looks up from his book and he's like, what are you building? The Pentagon? He literally said that in this room full of successful entrepreneurs. And I just went white. It's like a chill ran through my system and I just kind of froze. I was like, oh, fuck, what? What are you talking about? And he goes, dude, I know 7-figure a month online businesses that right now are running an ad to a VSL. That's their entire funnel. What the fuck are you doing? And again, he says this in front of the whole crowd. I was like, oh my God. So I'm like white as a sheet at this point. I go sit down. My ego's bruised. I'm contemplating my future in business, having like a mini existential crisis. But he made the point. It's like, this is way too complicated. And you can scale to 7 figures or even 8 figures, doing a few things really well. So all of online business comes down to 3 things, okay? There's traffic, there's conversion, and there's delivery. There's how are you sending traffic to your funnel? How are you converting that traffic into customers? And how are you delivering in a way that you maximize your customer value? So at the end of all of this, when I had contemplated and worked with a business coach to simplify everything down, I distilled my business to the essential components of running an ad to an opt-in page, sending a daily email to that email list to sell my signature offer, which was Elite Guard training at the time. We had a few upsells, back-end products, but essentially that was it. It was ad to an opt-in page, daily email, EGT. That was it. That business did 7 figures and even multi-7 figures for close to a decade. So my advice to you is at this stage, when everything is a complicated mess and you're scrambling, distill it down to its essential components. What are the things that are moving the needle? And then ruthlessly avoid all other distractions until you get to 10 million. That's it. You need one way of getting traffic, one way of converting that traffic into customers, and then one signature offer with maybe a little bit of a back end, depending on your metrics, that you're delivering to those customers. That's it. That will get you past 7 figures and potentially past 8 figures. Now, along these lines, this is a really key point. This brings us to principle number 2, which is to master a single skill and make it the centerpiece of your business. I love this old analogy from a OG direct response digital marketer named Ryan Deiss. He calls the T-shaped skill set. Okay, as a founder, you need a wide general skill set, meaning you need to understand a whole bunch of stuff. You need to understand sales, you need to understand funnels, you need to understand systems, you need to understand management, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. but you also need to have mastered one core thing that is the signature money-making activity of your business. So for me personally, I built skills in a whole bunch of different things, but I mastered writing, and specifically copywriting, and more specifically, those daily emails that generated most of our revenue for Elite Guard training. So for me, I spent the first 90 minutes to 2 hours of my day every single day writing, and I mastered that skill. For you, it might be sales, it might be paid ads, it might be creating content, it might be even programming, right? It doesn't matter. You want to match this with what comes natural to you. Again, we spoke about this in stage 1 and play to your strengths. But whatever that thing is, master that craft and become ideally one of the best in the world at it. You want to become a fucking weapon at this thing. So the plan for doing this is really simple, okay? Once you figure out what that activity is, you're going to do it every single day for the first work block of the day, preferably 90 to 120 minutes. If that's running paid ads, you're running paid ad campaigns, creating ad creative for the first 90 to 120 minutes. If it's writing, that's what you're doing. If it's content, that's what you're doing. And you do this year over year, hopefully decade over decade, until you become one of the best in the world. This will become the single most important ingredient to your success in business. Remember that T shape as an analogy. You want to be generally great at a lot of things, but a fucking weapon at one particular thing. In addition to that, principle number 3, at the same time, you want to be mastering the meta skills. This is something almost nobody does. And I used to, back in the old days with my basketball training business, I used to call this the X factor. It's sort of like that it quality that some people have and some people don't. Why is it that business comes so easily to certain people and they seem so natural at it, while others seem to just have this constant friction and difficulty in everything that they do? It comes down to meta skills, okay? Meta skills are the skills that make every other skill stronger. So in going back to basketball, because that was my first business, as a basketball player, you have the specific skills like dribbling and passing and shooting and scoring moves. But a meta skill is your athleticism. If you juice up a basketball player's athleticism, every other skill gets better. Same thing with the mind. If you make their mind stronger, more focused, sharper, clearer decision-making, it makes every other skill better. So in business, the meta skills are thinking, focus, which is your ability to control your attention, your emotional regulation, and your communication. Okay, so thinking is essentially reasoning through problems independently. Focus, again, is your ability to control your attention, to hold it in an unbroken stream on the most important task. Emotional regulation is your stress responses and your ability to process emotions internally without reacting to them. And then your communication is your ability to speak and write clearly and persuasively. If you can bring these together, these 4 meta skills, you become a juggernaut. Everything else in your business will get stronger exponentially if you bring these 4 things together. And to make it really simple, because this could be like we could create hours and hours of material on just these 4 things. Make it really simple, the 4 practices every day to master these are meditation, so some form of internal practice where you're controlling your attention and training that ability, meditation, reading, writing, and relationships. If you meditate every day, you read every day, you write every day, and you have some form of social interaction, personal relationships every day, you will be continuously improving your thinking, your focus, your emotional regulation, and your communication, okay? As a bonus, if you can incorporate speaking of some kind, like I'm doing right now, speaking into a camera, it could be even just speaking with a friend, frankly, like sharing something that you've learned, but practicing articulating your thoughts clearly and persuasively, that will also go a really long way, okay? So to keep that really simple, if you want to hear more on mastering the meta skills, let me know in the comments as well. At the same time, I'm going to give you a really uncommon piece of advice for this next principle. Principle number 4 is to work hard and live hard. This is specific to entrepreneurs who are beyond the survival stage, because in the early stages, you need full immersion. That doesn't seem to be optional. You can't also be getting drunk every night if you're trying to build your business. You need to be fully immersed. However, beyond that stage, I strongly believe in this. You should be working hard and living hard. And what brings this to mind is a post from Alex Hormozy I saw recently. I have a lot of respect for him. Guy's a beast, all right? Numbers don't lie. However, this was a rare, not so well thought through post that he made. And it went like this. There's no perfect way to live your 20s. You either live them up and become an underskilled 30-year-old, or you work them up and become an underlived 30-year-old. Okay? He seemed to think those were the only two options. That is objectively untrue. Objectively untrue. There are so many examples of young entrepreneurs, myself included. I have many coaching clients who are, building big businesses that make them really happy. They're doing work that they love and they're working hard. And they're also traveling around the world. They have a beautiful group of friends. They're collecting life experience. That, important point, is making them a better human being, which is to say, making them a better founder. Okay? Life experience will make you better at business. It will develop your personality, your worldview. You'll actually have unique wisdom to share because you have actual life experience. It will help you develop your social intelligence, your communication. There are so many things that getting out in the world and mixing it up and traveling, having, again, just life experience will do for your business. And your 20s is the time to accumulate a lot of it. I'm not saying you can't get life experience later, but in your 20s, like speaking today at the time of filming, I'm 35. Most of my friends are settled down. They're having kids, they're married, they're not out traveling, partying all the time. Okay. So your 20s is the time to do this. And if you have a business that's providing the ability to do it, my strong advice is that you do it. I'm not saying go full Jordan Belfort on your business and get shit-faced every night and crash helicopters in your front lawn. Stop using birth control. I'm not saying that at all. Be responsible about this. But there is a sweet spot in, an intelligent life strategy that combines taking care of your work, working hard, getting all of that taken care of, but also living well. There's more than enough time to do all of it. Okay. And so the question becomes, what is that sweet spot actually? And I've got a specific answer for this that I haven't seen a lot of people talk about. I spoke about this, by the way, at length in a recent talk called How I Built a 7-Figure Business Working 4.5 hours per day. And that's a true statement. Okay. So go and watch that talk afterwards for sure. But the way that I frame this brings us into principle number 5 is to work like an athlete. Okay. Work like an athlete. If you think about how professional athletes train, what they don't do is grind away in the gym for 12 hours a day. None of them are doing that, okay? Because it doesn't fucking work. And in the same way, you as a founder are a cognitive athlete. So our job is to do the maximum amount of productive work that we can do, meaning you are actually producing results. You have sharp, clear focus, and you're getting things done. The maximum amount of that type of work, high quality work that we can do before performance drops below a quality threshold, and then separate, rest, recover, come and do it again. Same way a professional athlete does intense bouts of highly focused training, and then they rest, they recover, they come back and do it again. That's the way you should be working. And there's a lot of research that says, in some cases, 4 hours on the very high end, 6 hours per day is about the most high end productive work we can do. Okay, a lot of research from Cal Newport, even Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, the godfather of flow. If you've ever read his book, I highly recommend it. There's a lot of research that's saying that, again, 4 to 6 hours of intense focused work is about the most we can do before quality starts to drop off a cliff. In the early stages, you might have to do more. And so I'll share a system that I shared in that video. And again, I highly recommend you go back and watch that video. I call it the 3-block system. So it's essentially 3 work blocks where you sit down, you set your timer, turn your phone on airplane mode, and you lock all the way in on the most important task for 90 to 120 minutes. Then the timer goes off, you separate, you rest, you can work out, you can take a nap, you can eat, but you can't keep on working. Then you come back, do another 90 to 120 minutes hard focused work, separate, rest, recover, come back, another 90 to 120 minutes. And you have 3 of those work blocks per day. And you do that day after day, hopefully year after year, decade after decade. That system works so fucking well, especially at this stage when you've you've distilled your business to its essential things that you want to do really, really well to get to 7 and 8 figures. And you do those things over 3 work blocks every single day. That is the most sustainable system for high quality work that I've ever used. And personally, again, that's why I titled that video, How I Built a 7-Figure Business Working 4.5 hours per day, because it was almost always 3 90-minute work blocks. Okay. Sometimes it was even less, frankly, because I was traveling around doing dumb shit, but I won't get into that. At the same time, if you are in a push, right, a product launch, maybe you're still in the early stages, my strong advice here is to not sacrifice the essentials. So don't sacrifice training, don't sacrifice sleep, don't sacrifice, good eating. Don't sacrifice those things because those will make you more effective at your work. All you do is you add a 4th block. That's it. That's it. So you go from 3 blocks to 4 during intense phases. That's all. So if you do this, again, day after day, year after year, you will be beginning to achieve scale. If you've narrowed your focus to the essential components of the business and you work on those, you push them forwards every day, you are beginning to achieve scale now. And there's a final piece, a final principle in this chapter that almost nobody does that will give you so much solid stability in your business. And not only that, like it will allow the stability for scale, but also you will stand out like water in a desert because again, almost nobody does this. This brings us to principle number 6, which is to operate from a code. Operate from a code. So to frame this, I was on a call with a coaching client of mine who had been taking a lot of training from like popular sales trainers in the world. I don't want to name names, but like high pressure phone salespeople. And he'd been practicing this in his business. And his question on the call was like, I'm doing all this stuff that they say to do, and I'm like hard closing people, and I'm using scarcity, and I'm pushing into their pain points, and it doesn't really feel right. Like it feels kind of bad, honestly. And I feel like people are left with a bad taste in their mouth after they're actually sold. And I said this to him. It's like, okay, let's assume you would make less money, which I don't think is true, but let's assume you would make less money not using those sales tactics. And you were just having casual, real conversations with customers, trying to do whatever was right for them and to help them make the buying decision that was right for them. Let's assume that would make you less money. Would you still do it if it meant doing the right thing in a way that felt good? Instantly, he's like, of course. Of course, I would sacrifice revenue for that. Okay. I don't think he would make less money, by the way. That's a whole separate conversation, but that is called a code. What are you willing to sacrifice revenue for because there's something that's more important to you? So, for example, you might frame this like integrity over revenue. That might be an example of one aspect of a code. And the reason this is so important at this stage in particular is because customers will follow and buy from those who they trust and admire. Well, think about who do you trust and admire? Probably people who live by a code. In all of your favorite TV shows, your favorite TV characters, or even in the world, think of like the SEAL teams or the special forces or like the Bushido code for the samurai. They all have a very clear code. Even think about the biggest businesses in the world. Amazon, for example. Jeff Bezos has clearly documented Amazon's code that they work by. Things like customer obsession over competitor obsession and frugality and experimentation. He's written about this extensively. That's no accident because businesses at this level must have a code that they operate by, that their entire culture, everyone on their team lives by. That is what is going to give you the stability to scale without having this crazy roller coaster where you lose the trust of customers and you're constantly churning through leads and customers and trying to claw back revenue. This will give you such a foundation. And again, it will allow you to stand out in the marketplace because nobody does this. So as a few more examples of a code, and my strong advice here is to clarify exactly what your code is, operate by it, and don't break it. We mentioned integrity over revenue. Another one that I live by is long games only. So I build things for the long term, no shiny objects. One that I really, really like that you could use for yourself is never do anything that makes you lose respect for yourself. So no cliche bullshit, no dancing on TikTok, anything that makes you lose respect for yourself, no copying other people's content, shit like this. If you operate by that clearly defined code, and by the way, it has to be yours. You actually have to believe in it. But when you deeply believe in it and you operate by it, that is communicated in subtle ways through every point of contact with your business, and your customers can't help but trust you. They know what you stand for, and they know that you will operate by that code. It's very clear who you are and what you're about. But also, that will trickle down. Well, not trickle down. It will come from you. You will develop a deep confidence in your business and a pride in your business. I used to call this good person confidence. It can't help but be felt when somebody has true integrity. And integrity is just a code that you live by. So you end up building a business that you're proud of. You end up having this rock solid confidence and conviction in what you're doing as a founder. And your customers will feel that in every piece of communication. You will build an enduring business with raving fans that give you referrals, and your business will be solid and stable and begin to grow on its own. That's how you transcend the scale stage. And when you play this stage right, when you do all of these things that we've been talking about, you will then enter into stage 3, which is sovereignty. So let's get into that now. So as I said earlier, sovereignty loosely translates to self-rule. You could imagine a king who has rule over his kingdom. In the business world, this means you have a stable, mature business that's growing. You have systems in place to continue that growth. You're probably making 100K to even $1 million a month, maybe a bit more at this stage. And you've also achieved a degree of mastery in business. You know what the fuck you're doing at this point. If you play this stage right, you could beat the money game forever. That's very realistic. You could be free of the need to make money for the rest of your life, which then opens up a world of possibility that you might not even know exists. We'll talk about that shortly. But I've seen way too many founders slip on a banana peel, stumble at the finish line, and blow it all as well. So there's some very specific and unique challenges at this stage that make this section of this talk urgent if you are at this stage. And if you are in the earlier stages, survival or scale, using these principles will be like pressing an accelerator button on your growth. Everything will happen so much more smoothly. So you can still apply this stuff now, and I strongly recommend that you do. So principle number 1 at this stage is being not stupid is more important than being smart. Okay, let me say that one more time. Being not stupid is more important than being smart. There is a world of opportunity that's opened up at this point that having a healthy financial life is going to provide for you. So you can do a whole bunch of stuff that you couldn't do before. I strongly recommend following these 3 rules. Okay. Number 1, don't get anybody pregnant unless you want to. Number 2, don't do anything really stupid that puts you in jail. Number 3, and this is the one we're going to focus on, don't blow your money. Don't blow your money. So many founders are blindly operating on this like cash in, cash out model where they're kind of looking at how much money they're making, they're eyeballing it. It's like, all right, that looks pretty good. And then how much is going out? That looks pretty good. All right, this is a bit higher than this. We're good. They're operating their business on vibes. That is not the way to do it. Okay. At the end of the month, of course, like many months, they'll look at their cash and be like, where did all my money go? There's no real wealth accumulating in their business because they're just blowing everything. And they're not, more importantly, they're not systemizing their finances. So there's a link in the description to get what I call the scoreboard. This will walk you through a system for managing all of your cash flow and making sure that your wealth is actually growing as your business grows. And what I would also do is read a book called Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. I've outlined the entire profit or systemized the profit first model in that scoreboard. So grab that. But profit first is basically a system of distributing every dollar that comes into your business based on percentages to its like necessary activities. So if a dollar comes in, you know that a percentage is being set aside for taxes right off the top. So, okay, tax bills taken care of. That can really fuck you up if you don't take care of that. So tax taken care of. You get another percentage for operating expenses. Your team's taken care of, your marketing's taken care of. Okay, we're good there. You get a percentage to pay yourself, which obviously is important, and so on and so forth. There's a quote from a UFC fighter I like named Dan Hooker that says, "I protect myself from my own stupidity." A system like this will protect you from your own inevitable stupidity that all young entrepreneurs have. I had it like times who knows what. Like I did some really dumb shit. Let's put it that way. This is the unsexy stuff that almost nobody wants to do. Almost everybody, when they first start making money, is like, oh, that Beamer looks good, or that Ferrari looks good. I had a coaching client of mine, I told this story recently, who filmed a vlog with a friend of his. They're walking around the parking garage and his buddy's like, I can't find my Ferrari. Where's my Ferrari? Oh, there's my Beamer. Let's take the Beamer to find the Ferrari. So they're driving his BMW around the parking garage looking for his Ferrari so they can go to dinner. I'm like, boys, you don't need two cars. Not at this stage. Do that once you've beaten the game. Systemize your finances so that every single dollar has a purpose. That way you have accounts with money growing over time. That's how you build wealth. That's how you put cash flow aside into cash flowing assets that are going to pay for your lifestyle. That's how you know that your taxes are taken care of, your team is taken care of, that you're running this thing like a real business, not just some side hustle. All right? So again, nobody wants to do this. Almost every entrepreneur I work with, it like puts this off for months, this step of implementing profit first. I suggest you don't. I suggest you do this right away. You will make way more money, okay? So being not stupid is more important than being smart. Also, principle number 2 is to know what game you're playing. This cost me literally 8 figures in net worth. No exaggeration, like 100%, okay? There are 2 types of businesses that you're building at this stage, either a cash flow business or a business that you're building towards an exit. You can't do both. I tried to do both and it fucked me up, and I'll tell that story shortly. But in a cash flow business, you're basically optimizing for money now. These are high margin, high profit, usually shorter term with a smaller upside, but you're getting paid now. And what you're doing, hopefully, with that cash flow is not buying Beamers and Ferraris, but reinvesting aggressively into cash flowing assets. So, I did a little bit of this, but what I would have done more of early on is taken that cash flow and just shoveled it into residential real estate, which is super stable and is going to pay a reliable return on, just rent. You're gathering rental income. You could pay for your entire life with a portfolio of residential real estate. Like 5 million in residential real estate will pay for everything. So aggressively moving your income from active to passive is the goal of the cash flow business. And that way you beat the money game forever. We'll talk about that next. Usually these businesses are an info business, a coaching business, or a service business. The mistake that I made is not understanding that I was in an info coaching business, kind of a hybrid, okay? That's a really high margin, high cash flow business that I then took all of that cash flow and reinvested back into growing the business. So I invested in team, I invested in tech, I invested in all this infrastructure to try to scale and exit this business. But info coaching businesses almost never exit. And if you do exit those, you're going to get a small multiple that kind of makes it pointless. So if you're running an info coaching or service business, operate that for the strongest cash flow possible, and then take that cash flow and reinvest it in cash flowing passive assets, like, for example, residential real estate. If you are operating for an exit, on the other hand, that's a money later business. You are, on the flip side, taking all of the cash flow and reinvesting it back into growth. These are like low margin, relatively low profit, longer term, but potentially larger upside businesses. So you're building towards an exit that hopefully will give you a windfall of 8, even 9 figures, something like that. So in the long term, you might come out with more money, but in the short term, you don't have the same security and you're not making the same cash flow. You're definitely not beating the game as quickly unless you just take off like a rocket, exit quickly. Of course, that can happen. So the goal here is to scale as big as possible and exit, usually with a software or a physical product brand. So you can't try to do both. You can't try to do both. If you're in an info coaching or service business, optimize for cash flow. If you're in a software or physical product brand, optimize for an exit. Decide which one of those games you're playing. And I'm giving general rules here. There are, of course, like cash flowing software, physical product businesses. They're just rarer, okay? And like the very top 0.0000001% of info coaching and service businesses can exit, but it's like next to impossible. So decide which game you're playing. My recommendation is that you build a cash flow business first. Take care of beating the financial game. Get free of the need to make money so your money is making you money permanently. And then go ahead and build towards an exit. Build a software or physical product brand or something with enterprise value and play that game next. Okay, so cash flow first, exit later. That's my advice. Do with that what you will. Third, the whole goal of all of that whole discussion is in this next principle, which is play the game to beat it. Play the game to beat it. I recorded a talk on this recently called How to Beat the Money Game Forever. And what I said in that talk is making money is a waste of time. I know that sounds ridiculous. Making money is a waste of time. What I mean by that is making money purely for the sake of making money. That is to say, satisfying your survival needs, to pay for your lifestyle and just being caught in this cycle of always needing to make more money in order to survive. That's a waste of time. We want to be free of that so we can play bigger games. And that brings us full circle back to that beat the game number that I hope you set earlier on in this talk, which is at minimum, your annual lifestyle needs. In that example, we said $250K a year multiplied by 20. That'll give us $5 million in cash flowing assets like residential real estate at 5%, which will pay for our entire life before we've made a dime from our business. You can be more aggressive than this, okay? 5% is pretty conservative. So let's say $10 million at 10%. Now you've got $1 million per year for your lifestyle. And that's a serious lifestyle. You should be sprinting to that motherfucker. Whatever that beat the game number, sprint to it. I have coaching clients who have multiple supercars, who are living in huge penthouses, who are flying private. Please do that after you've beat the game. Do it after you've beat the game. Set yourself up for life first. Young entrepreneurs think that it's going to last forever. It does not. Anytime I hear an entrepreneur saying things like, oh, this is so easy, I can do this in my sleep, and like getting overconfident, I know they're not experienced enough. I just know they don't have the experience to be saying those things. Every single business will go through a storm, probably multiple storms. I've had like 3 or 4 in my career, really severe ones, blow ups with a business partner, who would, anyway, I won't go down that. Like everything blowing up, the business hemorrhaging money, going from, multi 6 figures a month in revenue and then just cratering the next month. Like crazy shit can happen. It's not a question of whether or not it's going to rain. You got to have a raincoat no matter what. You got to have an umbrella. So take care of the cash flow first. You should have, again, like I said, you should be sprinting to your beat the game number and be shoveling as much cash flow into cash flowing assets as possible. The other trap that stops entrepreneurs from beating the game at this stage is not just blowing their cash. This is a little bit surprising, I guess, unexpected. I definitely didn't expect it, but this is what stopped me from fully beating the game. I'm in this kind of no man's land where I've done well, but I also had some like catastrophic mistakes that prevented me from fully hitting my beat the game number, which is why I'm so adamant about this now. And that is what I call the existential crisis. This is a surprise. I remember my biggest month at this point. I think it was like late 2013, maybe early 2014, something like that. And we were hitting multiple 6 figures a month. In the heat of our biggest month ever, I had this moment where I was looking at our numbers and I was standing in my kitchen, and running through my mind was this single sentence that just kept repeating itself. It was like, is this all there is? Is this all there is forever? I'd satisfied my financial needs, at least at that point. And I didn't really need any more money, but my life was wrapped up in making more money. And I was thinking like, okay, this can't be it. This can't be it. Like, is life just about getting what we want, avoiding what we don't want? And I went through this mini existential crisis that led to me taking off all over the world, flying around, like training in meditation and plant medicine, doing a lot of stuff that I'm really glad I did, frankly, but also taking my eye off the business at the same time, which led to some really big mistakes. And what I was seeking at that time was a larger purpose than money. I wanted to uncover like a genuine life purpose. And that brings us into principle number 4, which again, this is unexpected. Okay. So I'm telling you this, if you're going through this right now, I hope this helps. And if you haven't gone through it yet, listen up. Focus on skills and wealth now. Focus on purpose later. I learned this the hard way. And what I'll say about life purpose is that it exists. It 100% exists, 100%. There is a stage you can evolve into that opens up into a mission, into a path that you feel like you're uniquely designed for. Like all of life makes sense and it's just this imperative. It compels you. It's like a force of nature that moves through you. You have to do it. That type of mission, that type of purpose totally exists. That's a real thing. However, a few years ago at a retreat, I was giving a talk about that, the stages of life purpose. And after that talk, entrepreneur comes up to me. His business is doing about 15 million a year at this point. And he came up to me after this talk and he's like, man, that was so inspiring. I just want to burn down my whole business and go do that. It's like, please, God, don't do that. Please don't do that. A life purpose is not something that you choose. It's not something that you find. It's something you grow into. If you think of a video game where you're progressing through all of the levels and you're collecting hearts and stamina and weapons and whatever else you collect in video games, and your character is growing stronger and stronger at each level, before then reaching the final boss, the ultimate purpose of the game, if your character hasn't gone through those lower levels, he's going to get murked by that final boss. So the lower levels are a necessity. These lower levels, like conquering the money game, will set you up to be free to pursue a larger life purpose independently of the need to make money later on. So my strong advice is use the stage you're at right now to develop your skill set, to develop your financial health, to be free of money. That will open up into these enormous opportunities later on that you just can't imagine yet, okay? What you can at this stage find, though, is what I call a partial purpose. And you could imagine the ultimate life purpose, like the center of an onion, and you're just peeling back layers. So initially for me, there was the basketball purpose. I was a basketball player, peeled back that layer, and then suddenly I'm kind of lost. What am I going to do? Oh, business, that's another layer. And then I go through this existential crisis and I fly around the world, start training in Taoist meditation, apprenticing in plant medicine. Now I'm running retreats all over the world. Okay, that's closer to the center of the onion. And so you're peeling back layers. It's not that you have to reach this like ultimate mission. You want to grow into that, because in the same way that a boss doesn't give an employee a task that they're not ready for, you don't want that like dumped on you before you're ready. Use this stage to build your skills and build your wealth now. That will naturally open up into a purpose later on. That's my strong advice. And the final thing that I'll say for this principle is that to find your next partial purpose, the next layer of the onion, what you want to do is follow the sense of energy and aliveness that organically arises in your system towards something. So you felt this before, right? Maybe it's towards your business where you just feel this like overwhelming inspiration and like a force that moves through you. It's like, I have to do this thing. You might have felt it in a sport when you were younger. It's like this activation energy, like you get switched on towards it. That is the thread that you want to pull and keep on pulling and see where it leads you, because that will lead you to your ultimate purpose. In contrast, there's other things that you might feel kind of flat towards. It's like, yeah, that seems cool. For me, that's like becoming a billionaire or something. It's like, I don't really care. Even making 100 million, I just don't care. I don't care about that personally. Some other people do. For you, it's going to be unique. And so look for that sense of activation energy. Follow that energy. That will lead you to where you're looking to go. Finally, to cap this off, I wish somebody had told me this when I was younger, but I'll state it like this. This is the final principle in this section. You are supposed to outgrow your goals. You are supposed to outgrow your goals. You've probably come across Maslow's hierarchy of needs in your life. I won't go through all of them, but survival is only level 1. Okay, that's just level 1. And survival is basically money. Money is survival tokens. It's something that we exchange in order to get things like food, shelter, transportation, etc., that allows us to live our life. So this money game is really just level 1, and you're supposed to outgrow that goal. I see a lot of more advanced entrepreneurs chasing these huge numbers just for the sake of chasing those huge numbers. And in many cases, it kind of looks like a survival impulse that's just run wild. There's entrepreneurs who are like, oh, I have to hit 100 million or a billion. I even heard one entrepreneur who's done really well. He's beaten the game. And he's like, yeah, I've done really well, but I just want the kind of money where I can just buy my mom a yacht. I'm like, motherfucker, why? Why? I don't know if his mom really wants a yacht. Like, that sounds like a lot of work, a lot of maintenance. I don't know. So I can't speak for him. Maybe he feels really strongly about that. Who knows? But what I am saying is that if you've gotten to a stage where you're not feeling fulfilled with just chasing bigger and bigger stacks of cash anymore, that's healthy. That's really healthy. I sometimes look at the, old grizzled entrepreneur who's like just constantly chasing more and more and more money, like an addiction. And I look at them like the old dude who still goes to college bars and chases college chicks. I'm like, that's kind of gross, honestly. Past a certain point, making more money just for the sake of making more money, like collecting more survival tokens for yourself and more material wealth, that becomes counterproductive. If you have 5 houses, that's way harder to maintain than just one. If you have 5 cars, that's 5 cars that you got to service. If you have a jet, that motherfucker needs all kinds of maintenance and overhead. And then you've got to constantly maintain that lifestyle and make more and more money to maintain it. That's not, I don't know. Like, I don't want to get on a soapbox here, but to me, that's just not a good way to live. You are supposed to outgrow your goals. And as I said earlier, beating the money game opens up higher possibilities than making money. You can then evolve into a larger mission and purpose in the world, solving the problems of humanity, for example. You can invest in startups that you really believe in and get behind young founders and mentor them and cash flow their businesses and their growth. You can commit to mastering a specific art form. Like for me, when I fully retire, if I use the air quotes around that word, like I could see myself just writing full time, running plant medicine ceremonies, running retreats, coaching a few select entrepreneurs for fun that I really care about, kind of frankly living the life I'm living right now, if I'm totally honest, but just doing that in a more sustainable way. You could start like building and inventing new things. But when you do these things free from the need to make money, you have so much more power, and you also have money to actually fuel those things. So the point is, those higher goals are really hard to chase when you're still weighed down by stage 1, which is financial pressure. And in my opinion, your 20s, maybe your 30s, are the time to conquer the money stage and beat it for good. Satisfy your money needs now so you can move on to bigger goals. And I'll tell you what I wish somebody told me when I was at this stage. If you're asking whether or not there's more than, again, just bigger numbers on a scoreboard, getting what you want, avoiding what you don't want, I'm here to tell you there is. There is more. And as we wrap up here, there's one more thing I want to say that might be the most important thing to say in this talk, which is to do it now. Do it now. This is a bit personal. I've tried several times to record this, so please bear with me. I hesitated to even talk about this, but it feels like it should be talked about. So here we go. A couple weeks ago, a longtime coaching client of mine passed away at 25 years old, very tragically, very suddenly. We still don't know what happened. And it, as I've processed my own grief and sadness and I guess shock over that event, it has had this strange effect of kind of affording like a wider perspective on life, the sort of clarity that tragedy seems to provide. And again, it's kind of a weird way. And it's clarity on truly the urgency of life, the urgency to, again, do it now, whatever it is that you want to do it now. I was looking back on his life and everything he accomplished in the 4 or 5 years that he was an entrepreneur. And he lived more in those 4 or 5 years than many live in their entire lives. He, achieved every goal he set for himself pretty much. He lived in his dream house in Miami, driving his dream car. He had total financial freedom. He had a girlfriend he loved. He had a group of friends that he loved. He was living exactly the life that he had envisioned for himself. And he'd become exactly who he wanted to be. And I think one of the biggest reasons for that was because he was just the epitome of this scrappy, relentless action, the bias towards doing it now, whatever it is. I know as soon as he had his first $1,000 client, he dropped out of school and moved to Tulum and started doing growth operating. And the reason, one of the many reasons that he achieved everything he did is because he just did it fucking now. He did it now. And so I think this message often gets confused with doing more. Lots of young entrepreneurs are pulled in so many directions, and it's like, oh, there's all these things I want to do and I need to do all of them. But more often, it's actually about doing fewer things faster, deciding on what really matters, and then doing it now. And I would guess that you probably know what those things are. You probably know what it is you want, truly. And so what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? There are so many would-be entrepreneurs who never made it because they were planning to someday sit down and make a plan to someday sit down and actually do something, but someday never came. And so the harsh truth is, if not now, it's probably never. More often than not, it's never. And so again, my closing advice here is to stop procrastinating on your life. The business you want to build, the place you want to move to, the cute girl that you want to talk to, whatever it is, stop procrastinating. This is your shot. You are in your prime. As we said early in this talk, you will never have more energy, more freedom, more tolerance for risk, more balls than you've got right now. This is your chance to make it happen, to shoot your shot. And I just gave you a map for doing it. So there's no more excuses. Okay. This is the decade that will define the rest of your life and hopefully open you up into a world of possibility that most people never even get to know exists. So go out and get it. Go out and get it. Not later, now.